you could see it coming. There's no trees.
Well, it's just an icon.
Oh, a big thing in Australian history.
You don't go to the shops, there isn't any shops.
The Transcontinental Railway provided a crucial link between South Australia and a remote Western Australia. From 1912 to 1917, masses of workers were employed to construct and run the line.
Everything to keep somebody alive had to go out on that train. You know, the Commonwealth decided not to begin it at Adelaide or whatever. It was in Port Augusta. It was to go through to Kalgoorlie.
From Port Augusta, there was nothing. I mean, there was nothing. That was the lifeblood of everyone who lived along the line.
The importance of the tea and sugar was that there wouldn't have been any transcontinental link unless you had some way of servicing the people that were going to run it.
I mean, it was a wonderful thing. They couldn't have lived there without the tea and sugar.
It was a supply train. It came from the provision stores, was loaded with provision stores here at Port Augusta, and the workers out on the track were put in an order, and any costs were taken out of their pay.
You had your provision car and butcher van and a pay van.
And not only that, the tea and sugar every now and again had taken a nurse, a medical nurse out there to give the children injections, and then there was a film car put on once a month to take films out. See, they tried to make life as good as they could.
I think it's the only one in the world as far as that service over such a distance. But just the logistics of running it must have been amazing, you know.
The hardships for railway workers and their families were immense as they forged an existence in one of the most isolated and inhospitable areas in the entire world.
The thing about the Nullarbor Plain is there's no water. The Aboriginals knew where to look for it, but the white people didn't. And the amount of water you needed, especially to run steam trains.
I think the people who lived out and worked along the track, they deserve a lot of respect too.
I take my hat off to them. I don't think I would have liked to lived out there for years and years. But they did, and they forged the history of Australia through doing that.
It was a big adventure. That's the other thing. You've got to remember they're full of youthful exuberance. Also, after the Second World War, a lot of post-war European migrants, single blokes, were put off out there with nothing. The other input was from the Afghan and Aboriginal workers. Their contribution has gone unrecognised for a long time. From what I gather, there was no racism.
In the bush you don't shun people, whoever they are, whatever colour their skin is. They dealt off the train the same as anybody else. They were just good people.
I think they had to be very resilient people to live out there. Like, it wouldn't be for everybody. I don't know how some of the women actually put up with it.
Oh, the poor women work. When I look back and the bars of soap and the washboard, but they did it. They looked after their families, and it was very, very hard for them. It really was, especially when the children got sick.
It was hot, dusty. They didn't have the modern conveniences, especially compared with today, and the isolation.
That was the highlight of the week. The tea and sugar. You could see it coming, from miles away, see the smoke.
Well, the whole family used to turn out. Women with wheelbarrows to do their shopping, not a shopping trolley, a wheelbarrow to collect the shopping. And the kids were really pleased to see the train.
And you'd get news of the city off the train, from the people on the train, and papers. Books were so scarce, papers and books, and that was wonderful.
The tea and sugar performed another special duty. At Christmas time, it brought Santa Claus to the children of the trans line.
You get a list of what children you are to give presents to. But you see, a lot more would roll up too, so you have to have surplus.
No child ever come into that van and did not receive a present, whether they were Aboriginal or belonged to station people.
No, they get their cool drinks, their lollies and their comics and their presents, and they'd be thrilled to bits.
Engine driver Alf Harris performed the role of Santa Claus for many years, as his wife Nancy explains.
And he done it for 36 years. And it was the joy of his life.
The tea and sugar train continued to provide a lifeline to the workers between Port Augusta and Kalgoorlie for many decades. Ironically, technological advances in the 1970s would improve the efficiency of the railway lines to such a degree that the proud tea and sugar would soon become obsolete.
But the welded rail and the concrete sleepers did away with the need to replace sleepers and check bolts and spreading of the track during the heat.
And so the tea and sugar finally came to rest after almost 100 years of faithful service. Its place in history is assured, and its formidable contribution will forever live on as a critical part of Australian folklore.
Definitely important to remember all these things. Yes, it is.
This history needs to be preserved of the people who built the railways and the people who manned it and the sacrifices they made to bring all this to our current generation.
It just played such a big part in Australia, the development of Australia. And should be a legacy to all those who've come before us.
The Fettler and his family all waited for the train at the siding at Kanana where they'd never seen it rain. The lonely life out in the bush, it must have been a test. The nearest town, Kalgoorlie, on the line from east to west. But now it's nearing Christmas time, there's excitement all around. For on the tea and sugar train a Santa comes to town. Alf's done the trip for 30 years, it must have been a joy to see the children by the line and just waiting for that toy. For those who've lived along the line, the memory will remain. It's the pride of all the railways, the tea and sugar train.